Our last session for today is all about payments players, fast friends, foes or frenemies. And on the panel today we have Deanna from NAB, Lorna from AzuPay, Chris from Zepto, Anthony from Visa, and the moderator for this panel is Emre from Paymentology. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. We realize that we're the last thing sitting between yourselves and the drinks, but I think that you'll find this very interesting because we have an array of very valuable guests and panelists today coming from different backgrounds. So I think today the topic is, who are these players in the payment space? Are we foes, fast friends, or frenemies? As you can see today, we see a lot of different players out there. It shows the complexity of this space. It is getting complex by every day. And how do these players work together? Ultimately, everybody's goal today is to make the best customer experience possible. But in order to do that, we need to work together. But sometimes these relationships get really complex. We could be seeing each other as friends, but we turn out to be frenemies. Maybe we will discuss that from our panelists' perspective. But first of all, maybe just quickly in a minute, can you give a bit of a background about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Deanna Nixatijat, and I work at NAB, National Australia Bank. I've been in banking for over 20 years now, the last 6-ish spent in payments, so I look after fast payments, MPP at NAB. So that's me.
Hi, thanks Emre. Anthony Jones, so I head up digital partnerships across Australia, New Zealand and the South Pacific. So my amazing team really look after non-financial institutions, particularly scale-ups that are looking to add payments into their ecosystem.
Good afternoon, I'm Lorna from AzuPay. I'm head of SMB sales and partners for the business. I've been in payments for about 10 years. I'm one of the few non-bankers in my business, but that doesn't mean I'm any less passionate about what I do.
And Chris Jewell, CEO of Zepto, super passionate about the MPP and collaboration with these people here. We're based out of Byron, the first connected institution to the MPP, and also accredited under the CDR. So excited about the opportunity to talk.
Thank you very much. So I'll just start with a general question for everybody. Since we're talking about friends or enemies or foes, how do you see in your space, in your view, the opportunities to collaborate? How do you look at this as an overall organization?
Sure, I'll take that first. So I guess, look, collaboration comes in different shapes and forms. I think the best way to approach it and the biggest opportunity is really around harnessing the strength of each player. And where there is collaboration opportunities, ensuring that there are synergies, there are benefits, mutual benefits across the board. At the end of the day, customers, they just want to make payments. They want it to be simple, easy, secure. Anything that increases customer optionality and brings better value, I think is an opportunity. Maybe that the biggest challenge, I think, which is also an opportunity, is probably around that security element and the trusted element. And I'm not saying this just because I work at a bank, but I think it's really important, and it's probably one of those things that is a bit of a hygiene factor and quite a challenge, because it does really require collaboration, from the business segment, from regulators, government, as well as consumers themselves in terms of awareness and adoption. And, I think fraud and scams are really topical at the moment. And, in that space in particular, there is actually no other way than to collaborate. We all work in the same ecosystem, and we need to ensure that it is a trusted one and there is confidence in it. So I think that
makes perfect sense. What about you, Anthony? What's your Visa's perspective? How do you guys collaborate in the market?
Yeah, well, look, as one of the original fintechs, our entire business is built on collaboration because, if you think about it, we're only as strong as our members. We're only as strong as the members and partners that come together on the Visa net to make a transaction work. So collaboration is our entire ethos from that perspective. More specifically, if you're talking about new product developments and new innovations where there's an opportunity for all the people on the panel here to collaborate, it's probably in the form of embedded finance. And within our digital partnership team, we spend a lot of time working with organisations that want to embed a financial element into a platform that didn't originally start out as a financial platform. So giving people choice, giving consumers and businesses choice in how they make a payment is going to be incredibly important. And whether that's account to account, whether that's using a Visa card credential, or whether that's some other means, consumer choice is ultimately where is most important, and that experience for the consumer is going to be what drives us in terms of collaboration.
Yeah. How about you, Lorna? How do you see?
We've got a relative where AsiaPay is only 4 years old, so we contract directly with our billers, but we also rely heavily on building partnerships with people. And when we're looking at partners, we consider, are they complementary to us? Are they competitive, and is it a commercial arrangement? So there's a whole lot of things that we need to consider when we're developing these partnerships. Are we going to be able to increase the speed to market for one of the larger players, and are they going to be able to increase our volume? How do we make sure that we're making it a commercially viable enterprise for everyone involved? So we take a lot of consideration into how we build our partners, and anything that we do with a partner, we can consider whether that's something we're going to be able to offer to other people within the ecosystem as well. So we absolutely want to be collaborating across all levels, because that's where the growth is going to lie.
And Chris, of course, your view is very important on this one.
I think, yeah, thank you. I think, like, for all of us here, as we pioneer a new possible, a lot of the success, and definitely for Zepto in terms of scaling and building a business, is on the discipline to say what we don't do. You know, we're disciplined enough not to keep going in this direction, but to say, you know, we have to make decisions on what we can and can't do. So if we went back 10 years, I think the world was a different place. It wasn't evolving as quickly. Now we've got AI, we've got blockchain, we've got open banking, we've got quantum. It's impossible not to, in one way, shape or form, be thinking about these things, and it's impossible to be doing all that yourself. So I think the success is in knowing what you are doing right now, and absolutely taking a frenemy mindset out of the equation and just be collaborate in terms of partnerships. So yeah, very focused on that.
Yeah, I think we all agree on the same thing. Collaboration is very important, and you have your views. But I want to deep dive a little bit into it, and starting with you, Diana. What kind of insights do you get from your clients? Because you are, as a bank, you're touching a wide segment, or a lot of different segments of clients out there and users. How do you take these insights and use them to give you the guidance in your strategy, in terms of how you choose your collaboration opportunities?
Yeah, sure. And, being a bank, we do service the entire community from, consumers all the way to big corporate and institutional clients. And I think what we've seen probably in the last 5 years since real-time payments came to Australia is, mass adoption from consumers. There's now an expectation that payments are made fast and, whenever I want. And that has, translated to also businesses and corporates also now starting to expect that. And I think it's probably been, maybe the last 12 to 18 months that we've really seen that discussion within the business segment ramp up around, and I like your term, the art of the possible. I think the focus has really been within the consumer space about speed and always on. But real-time payments and innovation possibilities, there's so much more than that. I think with MPP and particularly with Pay 2 rollout in the last 12 months, there's the data richness, there's the digital enablement, there's the interoperability. There's so much going on, and there's so much development that's going to really accelerate and help innovation. So I think, from a NAB perspective, what we are seeing is there's probably, two sort of speeds of within the business space client engagement. One is, yes, when can I have everything? I want, everything now. They're keen. They really see that vision and what is possible. And then there's probably, another segment which is, a little bit I'm happy with payments. They work well. I've built my systems based on batch, end of day payments. It works for me. Why would I go and change that? And I think it's quite interesting because, our job as a bank is to take our customers, our entire customers, on that journey. And part of that is really around awareness and education. We know that, legacy systems, we will be moving away from legacy systems in sort of the next few years. I won't give you a date. But, it's really around educating our customers and getting them ready for what the future holds. Not only in terms of what they need to be starting to think about, but also some of those benefits and things that they will gain from the innovation that's coming. And I guess sort of that's first part of the question. Second part in terms of, NAB's approach and what we're doing. So I guess, one of our strengths is, yes, we are a large organisation. We have a large customer franchise, which is great. We've got a trusted brand. We have access to really drive ubiquity and reach. I guess with that comes challenges. We are highly regulated. There are some things that we just have to do. And that we have to prioritise. So, as a bank, there are obligations that we need to meet. And what this means is that, as with everyone, there's a backlog of items that we would love to do. We'd love to do everything now, but we do need to prioritise. And we need to think about, what is our core? What must we do? And where does it make sense to partner or collaborate? And, there could be lots of different scenarios. It might be around delivering innovation or a new solution to our customers. Or it could be collaboration with regulators to help explain and get them to understand, our vision and our thoughts and our strategy in terms of where the industry is heading. And I guess, when we look at partners to collaborate with, it's really around those who are leaders in their field, those who complement, our services and our strategy, and obviously there needs to be mutual benefit as well. So I think that hopefully answers your question.
Exactly, perfectly. And now moving to Anthony, I think you, as you rightly said, you are one of the original earlier fintechs, and your network plays a pivotal role in around the world, millions of locations to enable payments. And cards sit at the heart of it, but now with NPPs, with account-to-account payments, the new emerging ways of payment, how do you see Visa's position, your strategy, in terms of how you position yourself and how you collaborate with other parties?
Yeah, it's a great question. And what I would say, first of all, is that we originally started as a single network, which was the VisaNet. Now, since then, we've evolved into multiple networks. We are now a network of networks. That is our strategy around building out Visa capabilities. The other thing I'd like to pick up on, actually, Emre, is that you mentioned cards. Well, cards has almost completely disappeared from our vernacular. We talk about credentials. The 16-digit account number that is printed on the card is the piece that's most important, not the actual plastic itself. And in fact, more and more of those cards are being digitized and form part of your mobile wallet. And even more of those are represented by tokens when you're making transactions. So that's an evolution in terms of Visa from one network to multiple networks, from card to credentials and tokens, which I think is an important point to make. Real-time payments, again, we already provide that through Visa Direct. So real-time or near real-time payments exist for many of our cardholders, particularly in countries where there isn't a domestic real-time payment network in place. So if you think about the United States and the Venmo solution, it's powered by Visa Direct, the ability to make peer-to-peer payments using that 16-digit credential number. So that's the other part that I would kind of call out. And then think about the additional innovations that Visa has really kind of built on. And we haven't just been sitting still when it comes to acquisitions either. So you'll see a lot of my colleagues here today from Currency Cloud. Currency Cloud is an organization that we acquired a couple of years ago, and that provides a localized account number that supports many different currencies, most of the major currencies around the world, and allows individuals and businesses to make near real-time cross-border transactions between those accounts. So that again is another way in which Visa innovates, which is through acquisition. On top of that, we're working in relation to central bank digital currencies. So we're advising multiple central banks on how to build out their CBDC network and how that could be interoperable with Visa's own existing network of merchants and merchants acceptance. And then also with regards to stablecoin. So we're not sitting still with regards to that either. So our focus there has been to allow some of our customers, in the form of a pilot at this stage, to settle with Visa using USDC rather than USD fiat. So again, moving away from traditional currency to digitized currencies where it makes sense. And I think that's the important thing. It's about identifying a real life problem, which some of our cryptocurrency exchange clients have had in terms of remitting funds to Visa from their treasury. So using USDC stablecoin made an awful lot of sense for the likes of Crypto.com to be able to do that. And also there's some operational efficiencies because they can settle 365 days a year, 24 hours a day into our Ethereum address for their daily settlement rather than using USDC account to account. So that's kind of just a little bit of a touch point on what we're doing in relation to innovation. Payments is an incredibly fast-moving space, as I think we'd all attest to that. And collaboration forms a great important part of that. But we're also doing a lot of things behind the scenes, some of which you'll have seen and know, others which are kind of yet to come.
Understood. Very much. This is a great answer. Thank you. Lorna, I think you guys are in a specific or special place. You're coming to disrupt things. You're creating a network. How does these developments in the space, which is acting and changing very rapidly, how do you guys strategize? How do you see your next couple of years maybe, and how do you cope with this change today?
Well, I think one of the benefits of working at AsiaPay is that there is a very experienced team of people driving the business. I often refer to us as a corporate fintech, so there's a really strong vision on where the business is going. And I have almost lost my voice today, and part of the reason for that is we're in a room full of payment nerds, and I personally think of all the colleagues who work in this space as being friends, and as Chris pointed out, we all do different things and have a different focus. So working together has to be part of the foundation of the future of where we're going. We're not going to go on our own. We're going to be working with a variety of different partners. They take all sorts of shapes and sizes. We work with direct merchants. But at the end of the day, we work in a very niche part of the world of payments, and having the connections and friendships within the space makes it all worthwhile, frankly.
You're correct. And if you look at this, it's a big world out there, but actually the payment space is quite small. You come across the same people in different companies very quickly or rapidly. And I think sometimes we might be competing. We might be frenemies. But in the end, I think we have to be friends for our own sake, in a way. Chris, as somebody who's empowering the merchants to create the best customer experience, how do you see the way things are working today? What is working for you? What is not working for you? What would be your vision for anything that you think that it's possible to change?
And just before I answer that, I was just listening to the three of you talk. I think one of the things that's really important when we think about collaboration as well is that there's a new dynamic of collaboration, which doesn't mean that we're collaborating forever. Like, we could collaborate for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months now, which is very different to the way we've thought about partnership in the past. And I just was thinking about that as you were talking. But Emery, when you think about the next generation of customer payment experience, I think going back to what we said before, we've got to be really disciplined about what part do we play in that, because we've heard from embedded finance, governance, the way that the roles that banks play. I think for us, and the way we think about it at Zepto, is we really want to understand, we want to be progressive in terms of our mindset, but we want to work with really progressive partners on the way they look at it. And some of our merchants today are leading that thinking for their industry vertical deeply in terms of what is the next, what is the first generation of customer payment experience that we are all aware of today, but what does version 5, 6, 7 look like 12 months from now? And a big part of our partnership and our commitment to those merchants is about making sure that we're thinking about, how we're relevant today, but how are we relevant tomorrow, and what are we doing there? So that's been really, it's exciting to be part of those types of relationships. I also think, the second part of your question, what is working today? I think we're super fortunate in Australia to have an ecosystem that is accessible. And for us, it's the MPP and account to account, and for others, there are different areas. But the ability for us to innovate over that ecosystem and innovate alongside traditional financial institutions is exciting. I think, what is challenging is that, obviously there's reform and regulation and legislation in terms of the modernisation of the payment ecosystem we're part of, and sometimes it's still a little bit ambiguous about what that future looks like in terms of the milestones that we're investing in today to help, as I said before, create meaningful customer payment experiences for the future as well as today. So I think a bit more transparency from the regulatory environment about what those milestones look like. So we, as sort of the disruptors or the new friends or whatever you want to say coming through, can make sure that we're prioritising the right things today from a cash flow, from a resourcing point of view, relative to the way regulation's moving as well.
That's actually a great point to tie it up to my next question. How do you see the regulator's role? The Treasury is working on the grand plan for the payments industry to increase the competition, innovation as well, to support the whole industry. But how do you see it today, and what do you feel that needs to be done in the near future? And maybe, Diana, we can start with you.
Yeah, I'll try and keep it quick. Look, I think regulator role is critical. I think, the regulators do play a critical part in terms of providing some clarity and, guidelines in terms of the role of each player across the ecosystem. If you sort of use the sporting analogy, they're the ones who write the rules. The referees make sure that things are safe and can sort of be built upon in terms of reducing barriers to entry, driving innovation, etc. So I think obviously they're not doing the work, but they're enabling that.
I think from a Visa's perspective, we work with regulators in over 200 markets. Their role is obviously essential in forming a stable ecosystem for payments. I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the network itself has its own rules that we overlay on top, so our own standards as well, to ensure a consistent ecosystem and a consistent experience for consumers and businesses. So that plays an important role within our world of making sure that everything operates the way it should. Ultimately, the role of the regulator, though, should be to provide trust for consumers, so that consumers have trust in the way that they make payments and the way that they bank. Ultimately, we need trust within those systems, and those markets that have regulated buy now, pay later and cryptocurrency exchanges have seen increased trust, in our opinion. And ultimately, even though there's some short-term pain, long-term, that can only be a good thing for the overall health of the ecosystem. So, we work closely with the regulator. We applaud movements to make the ecosystem stronger, as long as it's fair and as long as it allows for competition and also doesn't stifle any meaningful innovation going forward.
Lorna, how about you?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. What we want the regulator to do is to make sure that we're all operating under a system that's going to provide customers with a solution that they can rely on, and that they've got something to fall back on if something should go wrong. So I wouldn't call it a necessary evil, but no, absolutely. You've got to work with the regulators. You've got to make sure they're providing the same rules across the board, so everybody knows the rules of the game.
And Chris, you already mentioned that, but you want to hear a bit more words, a couple more words?
I was just going to say that we're super fortunate, again, in this country to have accessibility to the regulators, like the Treasury, the Reserve Bank, ASIC, AUSTRAC. Like, the regulators are accessible as we're thinking about it. And to everyone's point here, all of us are creating, we're creating in the financial ecosystem. So as long as we're innovating and driving greater efficiency through technology, what we can't do is do that where it's creating more risk or instability in the financial ecosystem. So super passionate about regulation, like really am. Like we need to have it. It gives credibility, belief, trust, as we all said. And all of us should be advocates of, contributing to the way that, regulation gets shaped locally.
Okay, I think we're out of time. We have time for one last question. And I want to understand your view on, today, Australian payments market has always been the beacon in the region, wider region, Asia Pacific, right? So that's always been more advanced than most of the countries. But now as the world gets more connected, we see these ties getting closer with a lot of countries, creating these bilateral connections. How do you see Australian environment on the payments industry tying up or playing or becoming foes or frenemies with the wider players coming into market, or vice versa, the Australian players going out and doing, maybe expanding their presence in there? Maybe we should start with Chris this time.
A great question. I feel that we've got a pretty sophisticated lens, especially in the account-to-account area, of what excellent looks like in terms of how we're building an ecosystem here. So to be able to think about that in the context of some of the things that are evolving around the world, it's incredibly exciting. I do think that ultimately the standardisation or interoperability of cross-border payments is going to be something that's big. It's probably not there yet, but for us, we're looking at the US and what's emerging there with FedNow. But it's great to see Asia at the moment really leading the world in the application of technology and what you described.
Lorna?
Yeah, so we're obviously interested in looking at what's happening in other real-time fast payment networks across the country, across the Asia-Pacific region as well. What potential lies there? What are we doing here that we can replicate there? How can we partner with those environments as well? And actually it comes back to the regulator. We do have great regulators here in Australia, and if you look at the growth and adoption here, we're tracking pretty well. So we can see in other environments perhaps that governments and regulators in other areas might actually not be moving as well. So here's to the RBA, yay.
Anthony?
I feel like the audience probably wanted us to be a bit more controversial, and we've all been in violent agreement on virtually every point so far today. My position of difference here is that we would argue that through Visa Direct, we already have interoperability between markets. 4.2 billion Visa cards, 80 million different merchants. I can use my Visa card in Saigon, in Sydney, in Singapore, and it has exactly the same experience. I can move money using Visa Direct instantly between those countries as well. Now, I'm not saying that consumers shouldn't have choice to be able to make large transactions using account-to-account capabilities by joining together real-time payment networks, but I just wanted to kind of remind people, and also to take a point of difference to everybody else here, that some of that capability is already in existence. So we are reinventing what you can already do with technologies and networks that have been built out like Visa's. So that would be my call out. But consumer choice is king.
Got it. And Diana, maybe.
Yeah, look, I totally agree, and I'll try not to throw any chairs or anything. I feel like I need to do something dramatic, but choice is important. Increasing choice, increasing optionality, and I think interoperability, standardisation of messages, etc. It's quite inevitable, and it's happening. We see G20, Nexus. It's all very exciting stuff, and again, it is all around giving additional options and. Really driving consumer choice.
I feel like we need a bit more time to create some controversy, but I think this is what we have to do in 30 minutes. Happy to connect with you, anybody, to discuss in details and in the drinks, but thank you very much. Thank you for joining and answering the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us.